Long ago, in a faraway kingdom in a part of Nigeria, there was a land full of rivers, forests, and farms. The soil was rich, and the people were strong and hardworking. But even with so much beauty and strength, the kingdom had a terrible wound. His king, King Obinna, sat on a golden throne in a tall palace made of shining stones, but his heart was like cold iron. He was cruel, he was greedy, he did not care for his people. Every year he demanded almost everything from the farmers. They worked under the hot sun, planting yams, maize and cassava. They carried water, fed the animals, and walked their fields from sunrise to sunset. But at the end of each season, the king took 90% of their harvest. By the time they returned home, they had almost nothing to eat. Families were hungry, children cried, mothers and fathers felt hopeless. Old men shook their heads in silence. The young ones prayed to the sky, hoping that someone, anyone, could save them. The king was not alone in his wickedness. He had chiefs, men with large bellies and even smaller hearts. They drank palm wine in the palace, while the people starved outside. They laughed and told jokes, while the children went to sleep hungry. At night, the villagers whispered to one another, voices trembling with fear. "Who will save us?" they asked. No one knew. The king ruled like a god, and no one dared oppose him. But one day, the king began to change, not in kindness, but in fear. At first, it was small. He could not sleep. His hands shook, and his eyes looked tired. He woke in the middle of the night, screaming like a child. The palace guards did not dare ask him what was wrong, for King Obinna was haunted by dreams. Every night, he ran. Something was chasing him, but it was no soldier, no man, no ghost. It was a child, a small child, glowing like fire, moving closer and closer. The child never spoke, but he did not need to. The king felt its power. One night, the king could not bear it anymore. "Bring the chief priest," he shouted. His voice shook the palace walls. At midnight, a guard rode through the dark forest to fetch the only man who might understand the king's strange fear. The chief priest came, his white robe brushing the ground, his staff making a soft tapping sound as he walked. He bowed before the king.
"My king," he said, his voice calm but full of concern, "I am here." The king's eyes were wild. "I have seen something," he said, trembling. "A child haunts me in my dreams. Tell me what this means." The chief priest closed his eyes and began his ancient chant, moving his staff slowly in circles. Words only the spirits could hear left his lips. The flames in the hall danced and flickered. The wind in the palace shifted. Then he saw it, clear as the sun. A child was coming, a child not of royal blood, a child sent by the protecting spirits of the land. This child carried power, hope, and light, and when the child was born, the kingdom would change forever. The chief priest opened his eyes, wide with fear and wonder. "Your Majesty," he whispered, "a child is coming, a child who will end your reign." The king laughed, a low and dark laugh. "A child," he sneered. "How can a child defeat me? Tell me the family." The chief priest looked at the flames. He had seen the answer. He knew the family, but he also knew the danger of speaking. If the king knew, the family would be wiped out before dawn. He remained silent. The king's face darkened. "You are hiding something from me," he roared. "Speak!" The chief priest's hands trembled, but he did not move. "I will not speak," he said quietly. "It is not the truth of the king I serve, but the truth of the people." The king was furious. "Seize him!" he shouted. Guards dragged the priest into the deepest dungeon beneath the palace, a place for death. But the chief priest's spirit could not be broken. Though his body was tortured, though the blades cut his flesh, and the fire burned his skin, he whispered only, "Never." King Obinna grew darker in heart and mind. He sent his soldiers into every village. He ordered them to bring every pregnant woman. Some mothers cried, some screamed, some were silent with fear. The soldiers did not care. They ended lives before they could even begin. Hope was buried in the dirt. But in a small village near a river, there lived a young girl named Nneka. She was 14, gentle, kind and quiet. Her mother, Adaeze, had raised her with care and discipline. Nneka's father had been taken away by the king's soldiers, killed for no reason anyone could remember. They had little, barely enough to eat, but their hearts were full of love. One morning, Adaeze noticed something strange. Nneka was tired and weak. Her stomach had begun to grow. Adaeze asked, "Nneka, tell me the truth. Are you pregnant?" Nneka shook her head, eyes wide. "Mama, I have not been with any man." Adaeze's heart skipped. How could this happen? How could a child grow inside her daughter without a father? She looked around their small home, at the dog sleeping by the fire, at the wind rattling the window, and she whispered, "Then who did this to you? Could it be the dog or the wind?" Nneka's eyes filled with tears. "I don't know, Mama. I really don't know," she said. Adaeze's chest grew heavy. Something beyond understanding had entered their lives, and yet she felt a fire of protection grow inside her. This child, she realized, was not ordinary. It carried hope for the people, for the kingdom. At the same time, the king's soldiers searched for pregnant women. Adaeze thought of giving Nneka up. "Perhaps it is safer," she whispered. But a voice in her heart said, "Protect her, hide her. She is not just your daughter anymore." In the dungeon, the chief priest carved a message on a small stone, using his fingernails as tools. He bled, but he did not stop. On the stone, he wrote, "Do not be afraid of the pregnancy, for the Savior is coming." Then he sent a small bird, trained by ancient masters, to deliver the stone to Adaeze. When Adaeze received the stone, she understood. Her daughter carried hope, a child that could save the kingdom. That night, she whispered to Nneka, "You must never tell anyone about this child. Not your friends, not your shadow." Nneka nodded, understanding that she carried not just a baby, but the future of the kingdom. Days became weeks. Weeks became months. Nneka's belly grew, and the king's nightmares grew stronger. Every night, the child appeared, closer and stronger, shining like the sun. Panic spread in the palace. Even the king's wicked chiefs grew afraid. They whispered among themselves, "Who is hiding this child? We must find them." But Adaeze and Nneka were careful. They hid in a small hut at the edge of the village. When Nneka entered into labor, the village elder, Obi, came running. "The king is near," he shouted. "We must move." Adaeze lifted Nneka and they ran through the village. Soldiers came, but the villagers had begun to rise. For the first time, the people did not bow. They stood, holding sticks, stones, and courage in their hearts. King Obinna arrived, furious. "Bring her to me," he shouted. But Elder Obi raised his hand and said with fire in his voice, "Never." The villagers joined in, shouting, "Let the child be born. Freedom must live." Even the soldiers paused, afraid of the strange power they felt in the air. Inside the hut, Nneka pushed with all her strength. the baby came into the world, surrounded by a bright, holy light. King Obinna screamed and fell to the ground, shielding his eyes. The light filled the village, spreading hope and courage. Adaeze held the glowing child. "The Savior has been born," she cried. The villagers wept with joy. The chief priest, released from his dungeon, looked at the child and smiled through his tears. "All my sufferings were not in vain," he whispered. The next day, the villagers gathered. King Obinna and his chiefs were stripped of power and banished to the forest, never to harm anyone again. The kingdom celebrated its freedom. Farms grew green again. Children laughed without fear. Women walked freely under the moon. The baby boy had a mark on his forehead, shaped like a small flame. The chief priest raised his hand and said, "This child will one day lead with truth and peace. Until then, Nneka, his mother, shall guide this kingdom with wisdom and love." From that day, the kingdom flourished. Darkness had ended, and the light of hope, courage, and love filled every heart.
Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment below. Hit the notification bell so you never miss an exciting new tale. See you in the next one.